Hey gang, Craig Ripley here. Welcome again to Living Off the Slab. Now today you can see we're down here in the dungeon having a little coffee. It's really gray outside, so I figure it's a good day to make videos. The beard's all going frizzy today, so hopefully we can keep it out of my mouth as we're talking here. But anyway, we're going to be down in the dungeon here talking about a couple of applications that I use to plan my routes, and that is MRA Route Planner, that's over here, and Rever over on this screen. Now, I did a video about planning a trip to the Windy Nine, and I talked about how I use both of these apps to figure out some great roads while I'm traveling between Massachusetts and Ohio. So, I know we had a lot of questions about exactly how I did that, so that's what this video is going to cover. Now, I will warn you that some of this stuff gets pretty dry, right? There's a process that you got to go through, but we'll do our best to make it lively as we can. Now, if you like this kind of stuff, of course, please subscribe to the channel if you have not done already. And if you like the video, well, give it a big thumbs up. That'll go a long way to helping us to keep these videos coming. Now, if you really enjoy talking about and learning about this kind of stuff, that is travel planning or shooting your own YouTube videos, well, we have on my website, livingofftheslab.com, a membership that I call the Travelers Club. In that, you get access to our monthly Zoom meetings where we sit down and we talk about all of these kinds of things. So if that sounds good to you, well, please head out to the website, livingofftheslab.com, and check it out. So first, let's dive in and talk about Rever, because it's the first application that I used when I started planning this trip to the Windy Nine. And the primary reason that I maintain a subscription to Rever, and it is sold on a subscription basis, it costs $40 a year, right, for their pro version. And you're going to need to buy that in order to get access to the tool that I really like from Rever, and that is the Butler Maps overlay. Now, as far as I'm concerned, MRA Route Planner is definitely a better tool when it comes to actually planning, creating GPX files, and so forth. Rever, on the other hand, does have that Butler Maps overlay that I just mentioned, right, that allows me to go in and use the Butler color-coded grading system to find the great roads literally all through North America. The reason I maintain that membership is because Rever includes, again, if you buy the pro version, the Butler Maps overlay. What that means is up here in the right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the Butler Maps logo, and then their color-coded grading system for finding great roads. Now, if you click on the Butler Maps logo, then you can find out more information about this color coding system. And you can see here what that color-coded grading system is all about. Yellow means G1, that is epic roads. Red, best, G2 roads. The orange are great roads, that is G3. And then there are ADV roads as well, that is purple, and then green indicates what they call paved trails. Now, if you read the description of that, that is sometimes paved and sometimes not. So again, be careful if you select those. And then black with that little longhorn steer skull, well, that indicates lost highways. And these would be things like Route 66, whose original route might have provided those back roads through small towns. But now that the interstates have come along, well, nobody finds them anymore. So the way this works, if you go out to your map, you can then click on each of these grades of road, and they should start showing up on your map. G1 level, the yellow, G2 level, the red, and then G3 level, the orange. There aren't any lost highways or paved mountain trails on this particular map, so we'll just leave them alone, at least for this example. Now, you'll notice on the G1 level routes, there are these little location markers, right? And those indicate that there's an image that is available for that section of road. So to see those, you can go over here to Explore, And then those images will pop up for whatever is on the area of the map that you are particularly viewing. Now from this Explore dropdown, you can also click on these incredible roads thing here, and then you can turn all of the different colors on and off from here as well. And one other thing that you can do is come up here to this featured button, and you can turn that on, and what this will do is show you a featured ride by the admins of Rever, and in this particular case, it's linking some of these great roads together for a loop around the Propaction Reservoir. So that's an overview of what this Butler Maps overlay offers you within the Rever application. So now let's take a look at how I typically use it to help me find great roads. So let's use the example that we did in that first video on planning to go to the Windy Nine. So let's start in Foxborough, Massachusetts. All right, and then we're going to end in Athens, Ohio. All right, so then, of course, Rever is going to create the fastest route to get me there, which is going to be sticking to the interstates, right? And it's not going to be a very fun ride. So now what we want to do is go through and try to pick up as many of these curvy roads and things as we can. Now, what you can do here is you can go in here and say, I want to avoid highways, I want to avoid tolls, and probably avoid ferries. And we can see what it comes up with if we do that. Well, that's kind of weird, huh? It took us way up into New York, and then it still gets us, I guess, what is that doing there? That's kind of weird. A little service road along Lake Erie, okay, paralleling 90. So that didn't do a very good job. So, all right, so let's see if we can change this up a little bit. So we can come here and we can tell it that we want to do twisty roads. So we can select twisty roads and see what it does there. Okay, so that is kind of more like it, right? If we zoom in, let's see what this has done. All right, so it's picked up a few of the good roads, but not as many as I would have thought. All right, so basically what Rever's doing here is just looking for, again, anything that's curvy, not necessarily a good road. I mean, I'm sure some of them are good roads, but like here, you could be missing this whole big section of nice road. Maybe you want to ride that one instead. So that's why most of the time what I would rather do is just figure out the roads myself. I mean, this might be a place to start that you could then drag the route around, but for the most part, what I would rather do is just take a look at the map and, like I said, figure things out for myself. So to show you this process that I go through, I've taken everything back to that A to B routing on the interstates that Rever initially came up with. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to figure out what I want to do. I'm not going to let Rever suggest twisty roads and so forth. And what we're going to do is try to go over some of those roads that we were looking at before. This area going through the Catskills around that reservoir. It's a really great ride. I've done it many times. So we're going to see if we can get this route to stick to those roads. So we're going to basically just start dragging it. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to drag this thing up here. And then we're going to let Rever update. All right, and then again, I'm just going to keep dragging it around until I get it to go exactly where I want it to. Okay, there we go. And then again, I'm going to come through here. Okay, and then I'm going to, then I am going to come in here to Hancock, New York, right, because I know that's where I want to stop for the night. Right, and here in Hancock, there is a hotel. That's, see if I can find it. What I can do is I can come over here to the satellite view. All right, there it is. That's the Hancock Hotel. So I kind of knew where it was. All right, so I'm going to go up and I'm going to find my route, right, that I had dragged over, and then we're going to bring it down to there. Okay. All right, so there we go. I think that's good to start with. Now let's go back out to the outdoors view. All right, and then let's come out and take a look. Now, one of the things that you have to do when you're creating routes like this and you start dragging around is you got to make sure that you are on the roads. So, all right, I'm going to move this over, then we're going to go on to Highway 17. Okay, there we go. And we'll move this over to Highway 17 as well. So again, as you're dragging these things around, you really need to zoom in pretty good. If not, then you're going to cause yourself problems. All right. So again, I'm going to look through here, and we're going to make sure everything is on the road. Again, so I'm going to zoom in nice and tight, and we're going to bring that over onto the highway. There we go. And we just have to go through this entire process as we go, as we do everything. Every little waypoint that you're dropping, you need to do this on. It's just the way that it is. So, all right, let me stop here for a minute and talk about what we've just gone through, because I know that it can look overwhelming if you have never done this before, and especially as I'm trying to explain what is going on, well, it slows the process down and again makes it look kind of tedious, right? I get that. But really, it goes much faster than this. I am using Rever as primarily a research tool. Right, so I can go in and take a look and find good roads in a particular area, and that might go along with me actually getting online and doing some searching in Google. Right, if I'm going to be traveling through Pennsylvania, like we are on this trip, I might say great motorcycle roads in Pennsylvania, and then we can stop and see if there are any of those roads that are going to be close to my path of travel, right? Because I do have to get somewhere eventually, right? So we don't want to go too far out of our way, but we want to pick up as many great roads as we can. So anyway, I do that research, and I use Rever to do those research to find those good roads and then create a base route to start with. And you don't even need to do that. There are other ways that you can use it. Sometimes, for example, what I'll do is actually set it up like I have back here. I have Rever on one side and MRA Route Planner on the other side. I'll use Rever to go in and look at roads, and then I'll find them in MRA Route Planner, and then I can be making my route in MRA while I'm using, again, Rever as my research tool. Again, to see if the roads that I'm selecting are good ones. Now also, I'm not trying to be perfect while I'm doing this stuff in Rever. I just want to get it close. I want to make sure that it goes over those cool roads, and then I will bring everything into MRA Route Planner, and that's when I'm going to divide my route up into individual days, and then I'm going to make everything perfect. So we'll get to that point here in a little bit. Now, in this case, I've already gone through and did this whole route, starting near my home, south of Boston, and then going all the way across Massachusetts into New York, across Pennsylvania, and then eventually into Athens, Ohio. And again, I'm picking up as many of these great roads as I possibly can along the way. It's going to take me 3 days to get there. I'm doing about 350 miles a day. I'm taking my time and I'm enjoying this, what I think is going to be a great ride. All right, so we're going to skip ahead and let's say we've already completed this route, got it to the place that we want, because I did do that the other day. And now what we want to do is download these files so that I can use them either in my Garmin GPS or I can bring them into MRA Route Planner. So from this ride details screen, we can come up here to download GPX file, and then I'm going to get options here. So if I want to take this and put it into a Garmin device, I can either export it as a track, which is going to give me, as it says here, a static line that I have to follow. The GPS will not navigate that line for me. I'm going to have to do it manually. Or I can create a route, which will provide me turn-by-turn directions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it as both, and then we're going to see what happens to it. So I'm going to hit route first. Now I cut that short by editing, but Rever took quite a bit of time to download that, probably 2 or 3 minutes, which seems crazy to me. But we're going to now do it as a second line, which is a track, right? We're going to do it statically. And again, that didn't take anywhere near as long. So now let's go and we'll take a look at those files. Right, and we're going to navigate to them on my machine. And so go to downloads, and we can see the 2 files that was created. The first one I did as a route, so I am going to rename this, okay, as route. All right, and this one I'm going to rename as track so that I can know which is which. All right, and now let's take those and move them into my GPS, and let's see what happens when I do that. All right, so now that we have those 2 files created, the track and the route, what we're going to do is copy those over to the memory card of my GPS. Okay, we're going to stop here again because I really want to make sure that you understand what we just did. Right? When you're done with your route in Rever, you have 2 ways that you can export it or download it onto your computer. Right? You can download it as a track, right, or as a route file. The track is just going to give you a static line on your GPS unit that you're going to have to follow manually, where the route is going to give you turn-by-turn directions. Again, remember, I am using a Garmin Zumo XT here, so my ultimate goal is to get these routes that I'm creating onto my Garmin device and have it navigate successfully. So while you can export as both a route and a track, the best way to do this is using a track, right? And I actually imported both of those files into my Garmin Zumo XT just to see what happens. And the route worked. I got it to work, but there were some little bit of a kludginess in there, so I don't even want to show you how to do that. I don't think that is even best practice to do, and Rever actually says that the best practice is to export your file as a track, that is a static line, and then import that into your GPS unit. And if you want to convert it to a route or a trip, right, that's going to give you turn-by-turn navigation, then let the GPS unit do that. Right, so that seems to be the best way to do it. And also that's a similar way that I bring things into MRA Route Planner. So again, we'll talk about that next. All right, so let's move on now to MRA Route Planner. We have created those files. We've created a route file and a track file. And we're going to take a look at those and see how they look in MRA Route Planner, and then we're going to modify them. All right, so as you can see, this is what Route Planner looks like. It's not as nice looking, I guess, not as fancy as Rever, but I think it's a much better tool. Right, I have all my routes here organized into folders, which is one nice thing that Rever doesn't allow you to do, to create folders. So I have everything from my 60-day trip in 2019 here, all in one location. And I have Alaska from 2017, again, all in one location. And everything from my trip from Ohio to the Winding Nine, again, all in one location. So let's take a look at those files that we created in Rever and see how they do here in MRA Route Planner. So remember, we actually went through, or I went through, and I created the route that I wanted to follow, the basic route anyway, hitting all those great, beautiful roads, and then I exported it as a track and as an original route. So here is what the original route looks like when I imported it into MRA Route Planner. And you can see it basically just has two waypoints, a start and an end, and MRA Route Planner is just finding the fastest way between those 2 points. So all of the work that we did, moving all of that route around to hit all those great roads, it doesn't get picked up when I move that file over to MRA. Why? I don't know. There is a little bit of problem, as we talked about, with importing those routes into Garmin. So I assume there's also some kind of issue with how Rever is structuring their GPX file. So we can't use that. But what we can do is use the track file that was created in Rever. So I move to the track file and we take a look at it here, and you can see that this now follows all of those great roads that I was choosing as I was creating this trip. So I'm going to use this, and what I can do is take this track and I can convert it to a trip right here in MRA. And what I can do is go up here to this button where it says Edit Route or Track, and I'm going to hit that, and it is then going to say, what do you want to call it? And it's going to give me a warning. It says that the system is going to place waypoints along this track, this route line, they call it. You're going to zoom in. I have to zoom in all the waypoints and make sure that they're where I want them. I mean, yeah, I know I have to do that anyway, but they're warning you here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this something different, and we're going to just call it version 2, and then I'm going to say use, and this is going to now create a route for me with all kinds of waypoints on it. And in fact, there are 90 of them, right, to keep me on this really twisty and windy road, all these roads as I go over to Ohio. And that's okay, because in MRA Route Planner, all of these waypoints are shaping points. The only via points, as we discussed earlier, those that are going to be called out by the GPS file, are those that are at the start and the end of this route. Everything in between is just a shaping point that is used by the GPS to keep me on track. They're not going to be called out by the GPS, right? And also, if I get off course, well, it's not going to correct me either. So I do have to watch out as far as that goes. But there's no limitation on the number of shaping points that you can have, or it's just so high that it's almost impossible to reach. So we're absolutely cool. So now what I can do is now take this long route that I've created, and we can split it up into shorter segments and then work on each one of those shorter segments to get it exactly like I want. So how we're going to do that is we're going to come up here to the toolkit, and we're going to go down to split. And then we're going to come in here and we're going to select a place where we want to split. However, before I do that, I've got to find that location where I want to split. So think what I want to do on the first night. And what I want to do is travel about 300 miles or so every day. And so what I can do is come over here and look at all my waypoints, and I can find that location where I'm going to hit the 300 mile mark. So which is right there, number 32. And then I can look and see, okay, is that about where I want to stop? Well, that doesn't look to be near anything. So I'm probably going to have to go a little bit farther. And so I see that out here is the town of Hancock. And this is the place where I have stayed before. There's a nice hotel there, the Hancock House Hotel. And so I think that that is what we're going to want to do, go there. Now, one of the cool things about MRA is that you have all these additional layers that you can use on top of your base map here. This base map is called the Here Maps, that's H-E-R-E, and they're the ones that are used by Garmin, right? They're the base Garmin maps. So I can, however, use the Google Maps default, right? Which then gives me all of the extra information that Google Maps provides, right? And I can see right here, there's the Hancock House. So what I want to do is I want to bring this route down to the Hancock House, right there. Right, and then I can back out and make sure that it's all doing what I want it to do. And I can make sure that that is on that line as well. Again, that's just something you got to do. All right, so that's number 35, waypoint 35. So now we're going to go back to that split, toolkit, split. We're going to go down and we're going to find waypoint 35. All right, we're going to select it, and then we're going to scroll all the way down to the end, and we're going to say next. All right, so now we're going to get 2 files out of this. Is what we're going to do is get up to Route 35, or up to waypoint 35, excuse me. So I'm just going to name it up to 35. And then we'll name this one 35 and up. Right? Again, you can name them anything that you want, right? But I'm just doing that just so we can see what they are. So I'm going to now say split. All right, so it split for me. So now I'm going to go back to the routes. All right, and I have, this is my original file right here, that version 2 that we saved. If I go back in, look at it, you can see it's the entire file. It didn't get rid of that. And then we have up to 35, and we have one that's 35 and up. So I'm going to go up to 35. All right, and so now here is the route. So I can now go in and I can manipulate this and make sure everything is following the roads that I want them to follow. Then what I'm going to do after I'm done with all this stuff is I will then go out and I will pick up that 35 and up. And this is going to have me starting in Hancock. All right, so this first one is in Hancock where we placed it. And now I'm going to figure out where I want to stop for this night. So again, I can come over here to all these waypoints and I can look until I find 300 or so. So I'll just pick that one as a place to start. Start looking. All right, and again, that's not going to be near much. So I got to start looking around and say, okay, where is a good place that I want to stop for the night? And what I did when I was creating these files, I see there is Du Bois, Pennsylvania, right here. And that seems to be a good sized city and a good place to stop. So I'm going to switch to Google Maps right here. And I'm going to look into Du Bois. And I see that there is a Best Western right here in Du Bois. So I'm going to stay there because I have a bunch of Best Western points that I can use to save myself a little bit of money. So I'm going to now take this and I'm going to bring it over to that Best Western. Okay, and then we'll come in here and we'll get it a little better, put that where it's supposed to be. And again, what I can do is if I don't know where my turns are to get into this hotel, well, I can find out by coming up here, going to Google Maps Hybrid, and then that's going to show me the satellite view, and I can see the layout of the hotel and where I need to go. And so actually I need to pull in according to those arrows right there. So now the GPS will take me right to the hotel. But anyway, that is how all of this works. Now I can go in and I can clean all of this stuff up, and we're set to go there. And then I can take that third file that I created, right, which is, let's see, where are we? Over 32. And then this will be my last day going into Athens. And again, I look here, 338 miles, perfect. And I'll go in here and I'll figure out what I want to do. I've got to get around Pittsburgh here, so I may jump on the interstate here for a little bit just to get around Pittsburgh, or maybe I'll find a better way to get around. So just kind of have to figure that stuff out. And then we're ready to go. All right, so now we have all of the basic files created for this trip in MRA Route Planner. Right? Or let's just say we do, because I actually do. But for this example, what I want to do is now clean things up a little bit. So I went in here and I created new folders. I created an examples folder here, a Windy 9 site folder, and a working folder. And how I did that is I went up here to new and to folder, and then I gave it a name. Right? So, and then I moved files into each of those folders. So, for example, all of my things that we were just looking at, all those examples, I moved into there. Right? And then from the Windy 9 site, I put all of the original files that I was able to download off of their site in there. And then I have some things that were just my working files. And I'll eventually delete these, but for right now, until I get everything finalized, I'll just leave it there. Now that I've moved all of those working files and examples out of the way, you can see how I go about naming my files. Right? And I name all of them by the day that I'm going to be traveling. So the first day is 001, second day is 002, third day 003, and so forth. And I do that because then when I go into the GPS device, they're going to show up in alphabetical order, and again, by the day that I am going to be traveling. So that's how I organize things and how I keep from having to hunt for them on my GPS device, because that can get really frustrating. So then what I'm going to do from there is go into each one of these, and then after I have got this finalized like I want it, then I'm going to export the file. And I can go up here to Save As, and then you can see there's a number of different options, right, that I can export this as. I can export it to a TomTom drive, I can email the route, I can export it to an HD boombox, right, or I can set it up for a variety of different formats that are available out there. A KLM, for example, is a Google Earth file, if you want to do that. But most of the time what we're going to do is use these GPX options up here. And they have GPX 1.0, which is like for older GPX devices, right? And that will export it as a route and a track that you can import into an older, again, Garmin device, like a 660, for example. There is then a GPX 1.1 track, so that's a track only, right? Just going to give you the painted line on your GPX and no navigation. Then they have up on top here the 1.1 route and track. So that means both of those, a route and a track, are included in the same file, and that's the one that I'm going to use to export for my Garmin Zumo XT. They do have a new version that they have been working on, that is GPX 1.2, and what that is a combination of a route and a track. Right, it will have waypoints that you can have named within the file, and then between each one of those waypoints, it will draw a track. I played around with this a little bit, and it does seem to work on my XT, but for the most part, I just used this 1.1 route and track file because I know that it works very well on the Garmin's. So I'm going to select that. Right, and it's going to export the file into my downloads directory. And you can see that there it is down there. And then I can say show in folder. And there it is, number 1, Foxborough, Ohio. And you can see I've got a lot of things I need to clean out in here. So I'm just going to go through and we're going to do that with each one of these routes. There's 1. And then we're going to do 2. Save as, same thing. And just to show you, you don't have to go into each one of them to do it. You can come over here and you can go to the ellipsis here, and then you can say save as, again 1.1, that's the default, and then you can say save. All right, and it'll do it for you. So you can do it like that, don't have to go into each one of them. Now, another thing that I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to take these first 3 files and I'm going to reverse them. And they're going to be my 7, 8, and 9 for this trip. So this Foxborough to Ohio 003, well, I'm going to copy it. And we're going to change this to 007 Foxborough to Ohio. And we're going to save it like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into it. All right, and then I'm going to come into the toolkit and I'm going to say reverse. Again, another great tool that's available in MRA Route Planner. So I'm going to reverse this file, and now it's going from Athens up to Du Bois. All right, really simple. So I can go back out and I can do the same thing. I can take this number 2 and we can copy it, and this will become number 8. And again, the same thing. Now we'll go into it. Toolkit, reverse. Okay, and then I got back to Hancock. Again, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to reverse my route. Again, unless I find anything I just don't like on the way out, then I can change it up on the fly. All right, and then finally, the last one, we'll do the same thing, and it's going to be 09. Like that, save, again, and then we'll just reverse it as well. Whoop, toolkit, reverse. There we go, and that gets me all the way back home. Okay, so now we have the files created, at least we have these 3 created. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to move those files over into my Garmin Zumo. So I have it plugged in. You can see it shows up on my PC, XT, memory card, GPX folder, and I'm going to take those first 3 files that we created and we're just going to copy them over into that folder. All right, so bam, that's it. Really simple. And then I have them backed up here. All right, guys, so that's it. That's my process for working with Rever and working with MRA together. As I said in this video, I'm primarily using Rever as a research tool. I'm looking at finding those great roads to ride, creating a base route and then importing it into MRA where I can do all the fine tuning and get all the details and everything down. Again, just because I think it's a much better tool, right, to do those kinds of things. If you do something like I'm doing, go in there, create a base route in Rever, and then export it as a track. The track will allow you to work with it in MRA. It'll allow you to import it into a Garmin GPS unit, and then you can convert that to a route or a trip. And also you can import it into Basecamp as well, if that is your tool of choice. So start off with a track in Rever, and then import it into the tool that you want, and have fun with it. All right, guys, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll try to answer them. Also, I have a class that I put together out on my website about using MRA, so if you're interested in that, you can go and take a look at it as well. Again, the website's livingofftheslab.com. All right, guys, see you later. Ride safe.